Hi, today's story is The Last Flamebearer. The village of Eldoria had always feared the shadow dragon Vareth. For centuries, the monstrous beast ruled the skies, burning crops, destroying homes, and striking fear into the hearts of all. No warrior had ever returned from facing it, but 16-year-old Kael never thought he would be the one to fight it. Kael was just a simple blacksmith's apprentice. He spent his days forging swords for heroes who never returned. But one night, under the light of a blood-red moon, an old traveler arrived at the forge. His eyes burned like fire, and his voice echoed with power. "You are the last of the Flamebearers," the traveler said, pressing a glowing ember into Kael's palm. Pain shot through him, but when Kael opened his hand, the ember had vanished, replaced by a mark that glowed like molten gold. "You alone can wield the Fireheart," the traveler whispered, "and only the Fireheart can slay the shadow dragon." Kael wanted to refuse. He was no warrior. But deep inside, something awoke. A spark of power surged through his veins, filling him with heat and strength he had never known. And just in time, because the dragon was coming. The very next evening, Vareth's shadow loomed over the village. The ground trembled as he landed, his black scales gleaming like obsidian, his golden eyes burning with malice. "Bring me your gold," Vareth roared, "or I shall turn this village to ash." Kael stepped forward, heart pounding. The villagers gasped. "Don't, Kael," his mother cried. But Kael wasn't the same boy he had been yesterday. He raised his hand, and flames erupted from his fingertips. The crowd gasped as fire curled around his arm, forming a blazing sword. Vareth laughed. "A mere child dares to face me?" Kael didn't answer. He sprinted forward, faster than he had ever moved before. With one mighty swing, he slashed at the dragon's leg, his flaming blade cutting through scales. Vareth roared in fury and swiped at him with razor-sharp claws. Kael barely dodged, rolling across the dirt. His heart pounded, but his fire burned brighter. "You have the power," a voice echoed in his mind, the traveler's voice. "But fire alone will not defeat the darkness. You must find the dragon's weakness." Kael gritted his teeth. He had trained with weapons all his life, but this battle was different. He had to think. Then he saw it, deep in the dragon's chest, beneath layers of armor-like scales, a faint red glow pulsed. The Fireheart, the same power that burned in Kael's veins. Vareth lunged, but this time Kael didn't run. He charged straight at the beast. Fire roared around him, protecting him as he leaped onto the dragon's back, climbing its scales like a ladder. "Enough!" Vareth roared, thrashing violently. But Kael was already there, right above the glowing spot on the dragon's chest. Summoning every ounce of strength, he plunged his fiery sword into the heart of the beast. For a moment, there was silence. Then a blinding explosion of fire erupted, engulfing Vareth in golden flames. The dragon let out a deafening roar, its body trembling. Then, with a final gasp, it collapsed. The great shadow dragon was defeated. Kael stood, panting, as the fire around him dimmed. The villagers stared in stunned silence, until cheers erupted. He had done the impossible. He had become the Flamebearer. And as he looked at the sky, he knew this was only the beginning of his story. The end.